Eddie, Arsenio, John Amos, 90-year-old James Earl Jones are all back with new additions: Wesley Snipes, Leslie Jones, Jermaine Fowler, and Tracy Morgan. It is coming to America. Hey everybody, Dan here, and this is Dan Reviews It. If you are new to my channel, thank you for finding this video. If you do like it, please consider subscribing or liking or sharing this video. All of that helps my channel out, and I would certainly appreciate it if you like the review that you're about to see. So we're talking today about Coming to America. I know it's a little confusing because it's the same title as the first movie, except the number 2 replacing the word 2. But we are indeed talking about the 2021 new sequel to Coming to America, a movie that came out in 1988. And so this is a spoiler-free review. I'll say that up front, but there is a lot of plot to cover, so we'll cover some of that. But don't worry if you haven't seen the film yet. It will be spoiler-free. I won't even reveal all of the people that come back from that first movie in this review, so don't worry about that. However, I will say up front, I'll try to not run off at the mouth about this movie because the first movie is one of my all-time favorite comedies. I mean, it was so big when I was a kid. I'm 43, so when this came out, I was 11 years old. I saw it on VHS for the first time, so probably I was about 12 or 13 when I saw it for the first time. But, I mean, it became one of the most quoted movies with me and my brothers. And, you know, for me and a lot of people, it was a comedy touchstone for really a whole generation. I mean, you say sexual chocolate to somebody that's in my age group, they know exactly, for the most part, what you're talking about. And what's so great about the original Coming to America, and I won't go off too much about that, but is that it really hit every demo. Men, women, black, white, young, old, everybody loved this movie. It was truly, a comedy genius, Eddie Murphy, at his peak. I mean, yes, he had more successful movies later on with the Shrek franchise, and Nutty Professor probably made more at the box office. But, this was Eddie at his absolute peak. Comedy gold. I mean, this is truly one of the great movies, I think, of all time. Okay. So take this review for that. As a huge fan, maybe this one has a lot to live up to, but we'll see how the review goes. So basically, it takes place in real time. So it's on the 30th anniversary of Prince Hakim's wedding with Lisa McDowell, who is played by Shari Headley. And she's now, of course, his wife. So she's Queen Lisa Jofer. She's still a princess, I guess, at the beginning of the movie. But anyway, so Prince Hakim is summoned to his dying father, James Earl Jones, God bless him. He hasn't done any live-action movie work in a long time, almost a decade. It's been a few voice work roles, but nothing live. So, he returned for this, as many people did. But him and a shaman named Baba, who is played by Arsenio Hall. This movie originally was famous for Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall doing a bunch of different roles. They reprised a lot of those roles here, and then some. So Arsenio here is this new character, Baba, who is a shaman, and him and the king revealed to Hakim that he actually sired a son when he was in his queen's visit looking for his princess, which, of course, he ended up with Lisa. But on a drunken night shortly after they got there, him and Semi, played by Arsenio Hall, basically got 2 women to come up to the apartment, spend the night with them. And Leslie Jones plays Mary, and she, maybe drugged Prince Hakim to having this baby. And so 30 years later, they decide, okay, well, we got to go back to Queens and find this child. He will be now the king because, of course, I only have daughters and they can't be, running the country, which, of course, is outdated. And they talk about how that's outdated in Zamunda. But nevertheless, that is the current law. And look, that's realistic, So you have Jermaine Fowler playing Lavelle, who is the son, and him and Leslie Jones' character then come back to Zamunda with Semi and Hakim, and eventually Tracy Morgan, Lavelle's uncle, joins the party as well. In the meantime, you've also got Wesley Snipes here as General Izzy, who is the leader of Nextdoria. And, look, when I hear unobtainium in Avatar, I roll my eyes. It's so stupid. Oh, it's so hard to find. It's unobtainium. But that's a serious sci-fi movie. When I hear something like Nextdoria as the country next door in this movie, well, that's funny because this is a comedy movie and things are silly. It's silly that the barbershop guys that were in their 70s and 80s 30 years ago would still somehow be alive, but this is a comedy movie and everything sort of falls by the wayside in terms of some realism here. So Nextdoria, I think, is funny. And Wesley Snipes actually is the brother. This character, General Izzy, is the brother of the original woman that Akeem was supposed to marry in the first movie, and Vanessa Bell Calloway comes back again. She returns barking like a dog still, like she did in that first movie. And so all of this stuff is sort of going on as there's like a trade war between the two countries, and General Izzy's trying to get one of Akeem's daughters to marry one of his sons, so the two countries can be one big kind of superpower type thing. Anyway, all right, that's all really I think we'll talk about with the plot. We've gone on long enough about that, and again, we don't want to do spoilers, so that's really the basis of the film. But look, this movie, because it's so beloved, I think was always bound to be divisive. And by the way, you can watch this movie for free if you are an Amazon Prime member. It is up there for the viewing for free, which is a little odd to me because it's a Paramount film, and with Paramount Plus launching this weekend, I maybe would have thought they would have held on to the movie to help launch their platform. But obviously, they spent a chunk of change on this movie, and Amazon Prime paid them a lot. I think it was in the 100 million type figures to run this movie. So at least they made some money back, I guess, on it, whereas on Paramount Plus, maybe they wouldn't have. But anyway, this movie is divisive across the board. Rotten Tomatoes is something I generally look at to get a gauge on what critics are feeling about this movie and what audiences are feeling about this movie. And it's, a flawed system because it's either a thumbs up or thumbs down is how they get their general grades. Well, this movie has a 52% for critics, a 49% for audiences. That's what I call a divisive movie. So everybody is split here, yay or nay on this movie. And, why is that? Well, I have some theories, but I'm going to review it for myself as I do. But I think one of the theories I have about this movie is that expectations are so high when a beloved property gets a long-awaited sequel. And we've seen this a couple times this year. Bill and Ted's Face the Music, and then Borat's subsequent movie film. Both of those, Bill and Ted's was almost this same time frame, almost 30 years. And then Borat was, about 10 or 12 years or something. And usually long in the wings sequels for comedies don't fare very well. Dumb and Dumber 2 is a pretty good example of that. Zoolander 2 is another one. But here's the thing. I do love the first Dumb and Dumber. Zoolander, maybe not so much. But I think expecting something like this to live up to the original is an instant letdown. It will never be able to do that, right? This Coming to America, the original 1988 movie, is so revered, so beloved, so quoted, still to this day, that it would be really virtually impossible to have that kind of lightning in a bottle again, right? So what this movie does well is it definitely takes us on a nostalgia trip. There's a lot of, callbacks to the first movie. There's a lot of characters that show up. There's two major players from the first movie that are not in this film. One of them had sort of a minor role in the first movie, and the other one had a pretty sizable role in the first movie. Neither of them appear in this movie, and I won't tell you who it is, but I read why, and both cases was just scheduling conflicts. They were doing other things, other projects, and could not do that. So, all right, fine. But for the most part, everybody's back. Even some people that only had one line in that first movie show up in here, and somehow it all kind of makes sense. There's ways where it's like, in this universe, in the Zamunda universe we've created, this makes sense. So I like that. So, the problem with a lot of the movies with the long-awaited sequels is they become these fan service only movies. People that saw the original and loved it. Okay, here's the bits. You're going to love this. You're going to love this character. This guy returns, whatever. It's all great, right? But what Coming to America does very well, I think, that actually exceeds the first movie a little bit, is that this is certainly more of a family movie. This is rated PG-13. The first one was rated R. And to be honest, there isn't much of a difference except for a few of the F-bombs. I mean, Coming to America was very profanity-laced. And yes, a lot of the jokes came from that profanity. But look, 30 years on, profanity isn't that shocking anymore. I mean, in a major motion comedy picture, profanity just, who cares? So instead, they decided to write maybe smarter jokes in some cases for this film. But at the end of the day, not only is it a better family picture than the first one, but it's also got a lot more heart to it. Yes, the first one, there is the romance that is sort of at the center of it all, but it's also sort of just a platform for Eddie and Arsenio to do their characters, be hilarious, fish out of water, that kind of thing. Here, Eddie Murphy almost plays the straight man because Jermaine Fowler and Leslie Jones and Tracy Morgan, and to some degree Wesley Snipes, are taking on the over-the-top comedic roles that we kind of saw Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall do in the first movie. And actually, I think it works for this movie because here's the thing. You're never going to top that original. Right? So Arsenio and Eddie doing their bits, bringing back some of their most beloved characters, and it all works. I wish we spent more time with some of them. Yes, I certainly can say that. And overall, I wish they spent more time in Queens, in New York. I think the biggest flaw of this movie is really calling it Coming to America, and they're only in America for a couple of scenes. Most of the movie takes place in Zamunda, and, that's okay, because in this case, it's Jermaine Fowler. He's the fish out of water as the son. But I think, Eddie Murphy definitely gets some comedy jokes, but Akeem mostly doesn't do them. It's through the other characters of the film, and then through the newcomers that get the laughs. And I think that was a smart way to go. In Anchorman 2, you basically have everybody doing the same thing, but more. Everybody's more over the top. And most comedy sequels are that way. Hangover 2, let's do basically the same movie, but make it just more, bigger. And this movie doesn't actually make things bigger. I mean, yes, the king, James Earl Jones, wants a funeral while he's still alive so he can enjoy it. And that is a star-studded affair. I won't tell you any of the guest stars, or the cameos, I should say, that appear there. But, I mean, it is a star-studded affair. And it's a lot of fun. And that is reminiscent of the first movie where, of course, we have the big dance number. And, we showcase how big they do things in Zamunda. So in this one, though, again, yes, we're showing how big things are, but none of it was like over the top. Let's take the first one and amplify it. It actually, I think, is a very, very nice complementary piece to the first one. Now, the negatives include that it's not nearly as funny, and it's not going to be, I think, as quotable. I think the funniest parts do kind of come from a lot of the nostalgia stuff. The stuff with the barbershop characters, the stuff with John Amos and the McDowell's franchise. That kind of stuff is, once again, where we're getting a lot of our laughs. So if you never saw the first one, I think a lot of that stuff might be lost on you. But here's the good news. If you never saw the first movie, I think you could actually enjoy this for what it is, which is a pretty solid family comedy. And when I say family comedy, it's not PG. I mean, yes, there's some bawdy jokes here. There's some sex jokes, It's not a, clean movie, but compared to the first one, which, yes, I did watch with my family, but, again, I was a little older. I think you could really sit an 8 or 10-year-old down in front of this movie, and I think they would enjoy it. They wouldn't get half the jokes because of the references from the first movie, but what this movie does so well is introducing all these new characters to give this film, this sequel, a nice heart. And I think Jermaine Fowler, which, by the way, my nephew, who is 15, and my sister-in-law, we all watched it together, they did not know who Jermaine Fowler was. But both of them were like, this is really good casting for the son. He's really funny. He's, a good actor. Da, 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 da. I recently saw him in Judas and the Black Messiah, and he was from the TV show Superior Donuts. He's done a lot of things in the last 5 or 6 years, and he's really on the rise here. But they didn't know him, and they still really enjoyed his character, his performance, etc. So I think if you go into this movie with the mindset that, look, it's never going to top the original. It's virtually impossible. So why don't I enjoy this for what it is? Some great nostalgia, some good laughs with some of my old favorites. And let's see what it has to offer me that's new, which I think this movie does a fair amount of. It is still sort of at the end of the day, grooming someone to be king and da-da-da-da-da. And there's a few subversions that happen along the way. But, at its core, this is a really good family comedy. Yes, it surfs a bit of a nostalgia wave. How could it not? It's got to do some fan service stuff. But I think if you never even saw the original, you would still like this movie, maybe even more so because your expectations aren't through the roof. And I think that's where a lot of the problem lies with, the critics and the audiences both being very split on this movie. Oh, this is so terrible. Da, 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 da. It's really not. It's really not. Now, the director as well, I will throw this out before we wrap up here. The director is Craig Brewer, who directed Eddie Murphy in Dolomite Is My Name in 2019, which was universally beloved. So obviously he has got a good connection with Eddie Murphy at this point, and hopefully they do more projects together because I miss seeing Eddie Murphy. I really do. When he hosted SNL the other year, it was fantastic. Now that was pure nostalgia. He just did all his old bits, which was hilarious. But I mean, come on. And then, Dolomite Is My Name was just so amazing. Of course, Dreamgirls is also one of my favorites of all time. So I love the dramatic Eddie Murphy. So I'm interested to see what Murphy and Brewer do next because I think their first couple of collaborations have been a success. I leave Coming to America with a B. This is not, going to go down in history as one of the best comedies of all time. But, again, Coming to America was a comedy genius at his peak. You're not going to get that lightning in a bottle twice, but they tried real hard here. And to be honest, I think they succeeded in making a very good sequel. It's hard to do that. It really is. So, all right, that's going to do it. I know I ran on a little longer than I wanted to. I try to keep these standalone reviews down below like 15 minutes or so. Didn't succeed there, but that's all right. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it, and check out Coming to America. It's on Amazon Prime. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.